Breaking news at this hour from Orlando, where there are reports of a shooting at a nightclub in that city.
We are monitoring a situation in Berlin that appears to be perhaps a terrorist attack.
Tourists from all over the world used to flock to the old town before it was engulfed by Syria's brutal civil war.
Downtown Dallas, a planned protest there has erupted into gunfire. We're still trying to get information about exactly what has happened.
Can you send details to our screen, please?
Never has there been such an eventful year since, dare I say, 1968. Anyone who had any sort of predictions going into 2016 had their crystal balls shattered and on the floor, crushed along with their hopes, dreams, and aspirations. That was basically 2016 in a nutshell for Hillary, but more on that later. And as the clock ticks the final few moments of the year, I can't help but feel that we as people are living through one of the most extraordinary times. That can be taken one of two ways. It doesn't take a genius to tell someone how awful the news headlines were for this year, or how awesome that one moment from 2016 was. 2016 was dominated by a historic election, heated political earthquakes, athletics, Zika viruses, dabbing, gorillas, and overall just bitter tensions. Now as I go through this year, let me just say that I'm sorry that every other event is going to be a downer, but unfortunately that was most of 2016. To say that this year was shitty is an understatement. What exactly made this year so lackluster? Well, let's analyze. The year literally started with a bang. On January 6th, North Korea claimed responsibility for a successful test on a hydrogen bomb. Congress was in a chaotic frenzy about this, and overall it's a bit wacky to think that such an overweight man-child could shake the world with just one press of a button. It was an omen for what the year would eventually have in store, and that would be fear and terror. On March 22nd, there was an attack in Brussels, Belgium. It was one of many terrorist attacks that happened throughout the year. Political candidates were quick to jump on the topic and express blame on a vast array of topics. Ted Cruz was one of them, and another one was Bernie Sanders. But as we all saw, the both of them would end up not being the nominee for their respective parties. A lady by the name of Hillary Clinton, who was in politics for 3 decades, would take the nomination despite much controversy surrounding emails, and a reality TV host would later shock the country in the following months.
There will be a vigil for the gorilla Harambe, who was shot and killed at the Cincinnati Zoo over the weekend.
On May 28th, a gorilla by the name of Harambe was shot at the Cincinnati Zoo after a 3-year-old child was grabbed by the ape and dragged through the enclosure. Now, why do I mention this dead meme, you may ask? This bizarre killing of an ape was part of the pop culture that was 2016. We had musical hits such as Closer, Heathen, some lackluster parodies of those songs.
So baby, let's go mining. I'll bring picks and you'll bring shovels. All my friends are creepers, they explode.
Yeah, but that's enough of that. The smartphone was once again transformed with Samsung Galaxy's S7s and the iPhone 7s, which were used to play the smash hit smartphone game in July that was Pokemon Go. To the polls. Virtual reality was beginning to take shape while mannequin videos were becoming a hit trend. There were also summer blockbusters and box office bombs. Suicide Squad showed that audiences loved crazy clowns even though they weren't played by Heath Ledger. Speaking of films, Leonardo DiCaprio got an Oscar, so I guess that was one positive of the year? Am I right, guys? Oh god, who am I kidding? This year was a mess. All these goddamn bottle flipping garbage videos, oh, it makes me sick. 2016 also displayed some wild stories about clowns running about during the night, which in all honesty was quite terrifying until they got hit by someone. God bless this beautiful country of mine. You know, if you really want to go back to the year and look at what pop culture had to offer, all you have to do is watch the YouTube Rewind. I mean, sure, it paints a fake portrait of what 2016 had to offer, and half of the YouTubers on there are people you don't even recognize, but at least it includes TV celebrities who aren't even fucking YouTubers and are obnoxious as shit. So yeah, you can go watch that if you want. Anyways, where was I? Oh, on June 23rd, this little place known as Great Britain was having an election. Oh, you know, it was kind of a important election. The entire election was basically about how this country wanted to leave the European Union. I was talking to this one Scottish guy while it was happening, and he didn't like how the voting process went about. I later found out that the Scots overwhelmingly voted to remain while England voted to leave. Scots have very different opinions from their English neighbours. They don't really like Nigel Farage, the basic face of Brexit. I personally find him entertaining, but I can see why people may dislike him.
You have the charisma of a damp rag and the appearance of a low-grade bank clerk. And the question that I want to ask, that we're all going to ask is, who are you?
We're going to find out what the true effects of Great Britain leaving the EU will be in the coming years, but I will say that Brexit wasn't going to be the last major political surprise of 2016.
I humbly and gratefully accept
your nomination for President of the United States.
In the midst of deadly shootings across the United States, between terrorists and nightclubs, police shootings in Minneapolis, shootings towards police in Dallas, a failed coup in Turkey, and an ISIS-inspired attack from across the sea, two parties got together in separate locations to crown their nominee. Hey, that rhymed! July was probably the most heartbreaking month of the year. I think it was then when people started to realize that this year was unlike any other, and that anything could happen. The Brazil Olympics took place the very next month, and I must say that it wasn't as bad as people were expecting it to be. I mean, sure, there was controversy surrounding the United States swimmer member named Ryan Lochte, and how he falsely claimed that he had been robbed at gunpoint. Why, you may ask? You see, Ryan is a bit of a dick, and he didn't want to seem like an asshole by admitting he and his friends got drunk. They wrecked a gas station by peeing outside the bathroom and vandalizing a poster, thus being confronted by Brazilian police officers with guns. There are some awful people out there, everyone. In September, Colin Kaepernick, a quarterback for the 49ers, kneeled during the national anthem, and if I'm being quite honest, I found it ridiculous that the entire nation was focusing on this issue. I'm only mentioning this because it was a bit of a topic of discussion during this year, but I have bigger fish to fry. I don't really want to waste time on such a petty and whiny person. In October, the election had entered into its final controversial push. Debates were had and there were controversies surrounding emails and what shouldn't be said when it comes to talking about grabbing certain things, and of course, Ken and Bone. At this point, almost everybody thought Trump was going to lose the election. But then at the tail end of October, James Comey had sent a letter to Congress involving the plague to Hillary known as the emails. Hillary's arrogance had caught up to her. WikiLeaks and Julian Assange had made their impact on the election. On the eve of the election, Nate Silver, a political scientist and sports fan, stated that the Cubs had a smaller chance of winning than Donald Trump. You already know what ended up happening. The Cubs ended up winning the World Series, thus breaking a century-long curse that involved a goat. Yeah, American curses are really odd, but that's a topic for another day. A few days later, something truly earth-shattering happened. In the early hours of November 9th, a reality TV host was elected to become the first president with no political or military experience in history, and quite possibly the greatest political upset in the entirety of the United States. And the one person once thought to be undefeatable was defeated. Her hopes of breaking the glass ceiling were dashed yet again. It was, in my own opinion, the most shocking moment of 2016. The following month after the election involved President-elect Trump appointing his cabinet and White House staff. Trump's victory was sealed on December 19th when the Electoral College ended up voting for him. There were a few faithless electors. There were two who abstained from voting for Trump, but surprisingly, or unsurprisingly, depends on your perspective, Hillary ended up losing more electoral votes than Trump did. Bye-bye, Hillary. I would say it's been fun, but you contributed to this awful election. And so, here we are, a year full of shenanigans, and there's obviously much I didn't get to cover. I barely touched upon the people we lost throughout the year, such as the legend David Bowie, Alan Rickman, Prince, Gene Wilder, Muhammad Ali, Nancy Reagan, and most recently, George Michael, and Carrie Fisher, among so many others. I would even put Castro up there even though I think he was an awful person. Castro stated that history would absolve him, and to that I say, that's not going to happen anytime soon, that's for sure. It doesn't take a genius to state that we came out of this year being more divided than ever as humans, and we learned much about ourselves. But the truth is the next year going to be any better?
Latest on that dangerous Zika virus that's been linked to a severe birth defect.
Pokemon Go has brought the classic 90s video game into the real world.
And with that, I just have two more words to say. Obama out.
But I do not think it would be right for me to try to be the captain that steers our country to its next destination.
Wait till this year. The Chicago Cubs have won the World Series for the first time since 1908.
People are wasteful, they waste all the food. People are hateful and people are rude. But God, I love some people sometimes, because people are very, very special. And people are impatient and they don't know how to wait. People are selfish and people are prone to hate. But God, I love some people sometimes, because people are the greatest thing to happen. I said, God, I love some people sometimes, because people are the greatest thing to happen.
Prince George getting a delay of bedtime to say hello to President Obama.
And people are people regardless of skin. And people are people regardless of creed. People are people regardless of gender. People are people regardless of anything. I said people are people regardless of gender. People are people regardless of anything.
What makes Ken Bone so awesome?
And people are my religion because I believe in them. And people are my enemies and people are my friends. I have faith in my fellow man, and I only hope that he has faith in me. I said I have faith in my fellow man, and I only hope that he has faith in me. I said I have faith in my fellow man, and I only hope that he has faith in me.
Should old acquaintance be
2016. 2016 was an insane year for the history books, and a year unlike any other. 2016 is finally over now, thank God. I'm not going to try and sugarcoat this. There were too many tragedies to count this year among so many awful things. It's on days like these where people think humans will never achieve greatness, but on days where something amazing happens, your faith in the world is reignited. The world is at an uncertain point right now, but I will say this. 2017 is a complete mystery to all of us. There's still much that can be fixed and much that isn't set in stone. Politics and personal beliefs aside, we are all still one species who have gone through this year together. Our views on humanity constantly change from negative to positive. Exactly 1 year ago, we entered 2016 with no real idea what the year had in store. And as we enter 2017, I'd say there's much strife and love that's waiting for all of us. I'm Zeepsterd, and thank you so much for this wonderful first year on YouTube. Here's to 2017.